Hey everyone, this is Keith Scott from out in Sydney, Australia. I'm one of the voices of Bullwinkle J. Moose. It's time to watch Relentless and Unstoppable. And so give it up for your main hosts, Douglas Kenny and Andy McPhee.
Hey everybody, this is Doug Kenny and welcome to Relentless and Unstoppable. We have another amazing guest coming on the channel today, so please hit like and subscribe. And after this episode, please stay tuned to the RNU channel for more amazing guests. Let's get this on!
Hey everybody, how you doing? Just a quick little share of why I started Relentless and Unstoppable. It was for one very simple reason, because of Doug Kenny. Nothing to do with me at all, zero. I was just coaching Doug, and he took on the coaching and mentoring, and he made all the changes. He took all the suggestions from his parents as well as my coaching, but it was all about Doug, his breakthrough and his weight loss, his willingness to accept that he is dealing with high functioning autism and other issues, but he's never quit, he's never given up. So we did one interview with him to share his story, and then we decided to start interviewing other people. And Doug has now taken over the whole channel, and he does all the interviews, he runs everything. He's just an amazing young man. So RNU was born from simply what an amazing young man Doug is, and his story needed to be shared.
Hey everybody, this is Doug Kenny from Relentless and Unstoppable, and today we have Dorsey Ross with us. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm good, Doug. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Where are you at the moment?
I am in Westchester, Pennsylvania at the moment.
Nice. Is Pennsylvania a good state?
I think so. I think it's a good state. You know, a lot of different areas to visit, and got a couple of big cities, you know, Pittsburgh on one end and then Philadelphia, where I'm closer to on the other end.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Philadelphia. What's that place like?
I mean, it could be, like any big city, it could be better, you know, but, you know, I mean, it's got the Liberty Bell and got, you know, a lot of history to it, so.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of historical significance to Philadelphia in the United States. I learned about it in history, and so, yeah, sounds like you live in a nice place. So I must ask, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from New York. I lived in Queens, which is by New York City, and then I lived out on Long Island for a bit as well.
Nice. Those are good places of also historical significance, you know?
Right.
Yeah, you know that the capital of America before it became Washington, D.C. was New York City?
I think I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting factoid I heard. And yeah, it's just a pretty interesting place with a lot of significance, the Statue of Liberty, etc. You know,
Right.
You've been to a lot of good places. So tell our followers a bit of what you're known for, what you do, and what your upbringing was like.
Yeah, I'm a podcaster. I have my own podcast show called the Dorsey Ross Show, and I'm also a traveling speaker / minister. I'm currently working at Target, you know, as a part-time, and you know, I have my own book. I'm an author as well, and I have my own book called Overcomer, which is available on Amazon. And you know, I travel around sharing my story of what God has done in my life. I was born with a birth defect called aplet syndrome, which is a birth defect of the hands and the face. When I was born, my forehead was pushed outward, my eyes and nose were pushed back into my head, and my fingers and toes were fused together me, and I had no individual movement of them. And because I had no spot and no room for my brain to grow, the doctors initially thought I would become brain dead, and they told my parents to, sign the papers and to put me into a institution. I was born back in January 16th, 1977. So back then they didn't have a lot of the technology and a lot of the, medical stuff that they do now to, determine the health of the baby or determine the weight of the baby and all those things. So my parents were unaware of the fact that I was going to have any type of birth defect until I was born. And funny thing is, my mom, for at least a couple months, didn't even realize that she was pregnant, because at one point, my mom was 41 and my dad was 45 when they had me. So, at that age, my mom wasn't expecting to have another baby or to have another child. They really had two grown daughters. So she went to the doctor because she started to gain weight, and the doctor said, well, you don't have a tumor, you don't have cancer, anything of that nature, but you do have a baby growing inside of you. Thankfully, because of my parents' faith and my parents' belief in God, they said, well, we won't, give up on him. We're not going to sign these papers over to the state, and, we'll just, when he's able to, we'll just take him home and see what will happen. And there was a nurse in the hospital. This all happened back when I was living in New York City as a child and baby, and eventually an adult. And the nurse there said, well, we know of a hospital in Manhattan called Columbia Presbyterian that's doing babies on, operations on babies like your son. Why don't you take him there and see what will happen? And so they did. And the doctors there said, well, we can operate. We can, relieve the pressure that's right now on his thing. We can't really give you a diagnosis of how long he'll live or how much of a healthy, lifestyle he'll, be able to live. But, we know that he'll have issues and he'll have difficulties that he'll have to overcome, but he will, if he has this operation, he'll survive. And at one point, the doctors apparently told my parents that they didn't think I would live past the age of 18. And right now I'm 47 years old. And I'm not sure if I, mentioned the name of it, but I have, birth defect called aplet syndrome, which is a very rare birth defect, and about 1 in 80,000 or 1 in 160,000 births, that's when it happens. And I know several people, even on Facebook, there's a Facebook group specifically for people with facial, disfigurement and think of that nature. There's a lot of people in that group with my disability. And, for the most part, we can live a normal, lifespan up to whatever the normal lifespan is now. We can live up to that. But unfortunately, just like anybody else, we don't really know how long we will live. Over my lifetime, I've had probably up until about 18, 19, I've had about 68 operations to reconstruct my face and to separate my fingers and to allow my fingers to have as much, mobility as I'm able to. And my fingers are shortened. They're not, the regular size, fingers as a, quote unquote normal person would have. And, but I'm able to, pick up things. I'm able to write. I'm able to draw. I'm able to do, almost anything that anybody else, can do. And growing up, because of the way that I looked and because of the way, I looked differently, I was teased, I was made fun of, I was picked on, I was called names like monster and freak. And I went to a school for people with disabilities because they didn't think that, they thought the school for people with disabilities would be a better environment for me to learn and to understand and to grasp things better. And to an extent it probably was. But on the flip side of it, because we know the term, hurt people, there was also in that environment the bullying and the, making fun of other students, even though 100% of those students were people with some type of disability.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's really sad that you experienced that. I was a victim of bullying growing up as well, but it was mostly there was some physical bullying I had on some occasion, and I was assaulted by a paraprofessional in a special ed class I was in years ago. And then the bullying I had afterwards was mostly just students purposely excluding me from activities, even ones that I had to be even ones that I had to be part of for my education, for teaching, And
Right.
what would happen is they would, whenever I was like teamed up in a group for an activity, especially in class, I would be part of it, but they would act like I didn't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because they didn't understand me. And then, one year in fifth grade, we had a whole President's Day event where we dressed up as the presidents of the United States and their wives, the Hall of U.S. Presidents, as we called it. And what happened was I played a president that was unpopular. I'm not going to mention which one it was, but it was an unpopular president. And so I ended up getting jeered at by people and, made fun of. And they would even walk away before I could even finish giving my presentation as the president. Because, along with dressing up with them, we had to also give presentations to people talking about the president, you know what I mean, that we were portraying.
Right.
But people would just jeer me, mock me, or they would just walk away before I even had a chance to even get a word in edgewise or even finish the presentation. And there was one kid that somehow knew what the C word was when jeering me. I don't know where he heard it from, but yeah, those people were lucky that I was not in my fourth grade class that year with Trisha Wynn, because I had a stricter teacher in fifth grade. And if I were in Trisha Wynn's class, I would have had the courage to sort of, to sort of address it, probably not in a comfortable way, but still sort of be given the mercy. You know what I mean? You know what I'm getting
Right.
at?
Yeah.
Gee, that's all we have for Relentless and Unstoppable. So tune into the next episode to hear more amazing stories from amazing guests. This is Keith Scott from Sydney, Australia saying so long, and I'm smarter than the average bear. Gee.